So Newcastle United have had a massive boost going into that game against Liverpool. The big injury concern was Alexander Isak. Was he going to be fit to face the team that are running away with it at the top of the Premier League? Newcastle United need all the luck they can get. They need everybody as fit as they can get them to be. And Alexander Isak has now declared himself fit. Speaking earlier in an interview with beIN Sports, he said that he's recovered and the plan was to face Arne Slot's side on Wednesday night. Of course, he suffered that big whack. Tyreek Mitchell putting in a challenge after just 21 minutes in the game, and Isak's afternoon was over. It didn't look good. Eddie Howe, after the game, saying that he was hoping for good news. Well, he's now had that good news, and Isak will face Liverpool for the big one at St James's Park. Remember, for Isak, he's had issues this season with a toe injury, missed a few games in the autumn, and this would have been the last thing he needed to be out for a long period of time. He had issues last season as well, of course, and Newcastle need him fit and firing. They've obviously got to get their service levels much better for the player who has, this season looked frustrated, let's be totally honest. But the good news is he's fit to face Liverpool, and that will give everybody a big boost after Crystal Palace. Well, I think the fact that Isak is going to be fit is a huge boost for Eddie Howe. He obviously felt that Callum Wilson wasn't quite ready to play anywhere near even an hour's worth of football. The fact that he overlooked Wilson when Isak came off initially. He went for a warm-up. Callum Wilson didn't end up getting on until the last 15 minutes of the game. So that shows you where Callum Wilson is at the moment. And for Newcastle fans, the question continues about William Masula. When is he going to get his opportunity? But had Isak not made this game, then I think it would have been a real dilemma. It would have looked to me like Anthony Gordon would have led the line rather than putting one of the actual out-and-out strikers into the team in either Asula or Wilson, which is, that just shows you where Newcastle are at the minute fitness-wise. So a big boost in that sense. I think, we can now probably talk a little bit more about the aftermath of Crystal Palace, what happened behind the scenes. But the aftermath of the game, it's all been focusing around Eddie Howe. And, I've watched a lot of different videos and read a lot of different sort of fanzine articles. I've read a lot of other opinions within the media, and it is very critical of Eddie Howe. I think some of it, for me, has potentially gone a little bit too far. I think you look at the fact that Newcastle are still sitting on 19 points. They're only 4 points off where they were this time last year at the exact same stage. They obviously went on to finish 7th, which, normally is a European place. So, without going over all ground, 9 times out of 10, they would have probably been in Europe this season, given where they finished. It wasn't to be because of the way things unfolded with the FA Cup final and things like that. But for only 4 points behind, especially, had they beat Crystal Palace, it would have been 2 points behind where they were. They still seem like they're making progress under Eddie Howe. Someone asked me on one of the social media platforms, has Eddie Howe lost the dressing room? And I was a bit baffled by that personally, because that does not look like a team who aren't playing for the manager. The fact they all stood together and applauded the fans as one showed, for me, that they were together. And the fact they were fighting tooth and nail at the final whistle, trying to get those 3 points. Joe Linton even at one stage celebrating, putting the ball out for a throw-in. That does not look like a team who aren't trying. He didn't just storm off the pitch afterwards either. So for me, I think that this team are playing for Eddie Howe. I'm not going to sit here and say Saturday was a great performance, because it wasn't. They didn't have any shots on target. But it doesn't mean they weren't a threat. They still had, I think, 9 corners. They still had about 15 sort of forays into the penalty area. They were winning 1-0 for most of the second half. And for me, unfortunate not to get the 3 points in a different way. They didn't dominate Crystal Palace, but ultimately they came within a whisker of getting what would have been a massive victory. And the strange thing is that had Newcastle held on for that win, then no one would be talking about Eddie Howe's position. They'd be sitting in 7th place again in the table. They'd be going in the Liverpool game, looking forward to it, knowing it's a tough game. But I think ultimately for Newcastle fans, they also know that Eddie Howe, has done a fantastic job for Newcastle, and I think you can't take that away from him. I think last season was slightly disappointing, but you had the injuries which were a problem. Season before, getting in the Champions League and a Carabao Cup final, I don't have to justify that. His first season absolutely fantastic, leading the team from a relegation battle up to 11th in the table. And this season, while they are sitting in 11th, it's a race for Europe which is wide open. Newcastle could put 2 wins together. Even 1 win takes you back up to a European place. They're still in the Carabao Cup. Should hopefully get through against Brentford and be in another semi-final, and the FA Cup draw to come as well. So let's see what happens in that. But I think for me, this one is, one where I think people have reacted to it angrily. I don't know if it's the nature of the 94th minute winner. I don't know about where people think Newcastle should be, given they've had problems with the PSR situation, trying to sign players, all those financial issues. And for me, I think really it's one of them where Eddie Howe will feel that his team, should be higher on the table, and he's pretty much said that. But I think far too early to be talking about managerial change. Not what I'm being told, that Paul Mitchell, right behind Eddie Howe, describing him as an elite manager. The management, the board, all right behind Eddie Howe. Hopefully going to be able to help him in January. None of the stuff that I've sort of seen or read afterwards, tallies with what I believe they're thinking at the top. But look, football can be a strange game. Newcastle could go on a horrendous run and not get, where they need to be. But while they're still in both the cups, while they're still in with a big chance of a European place, it doesn't look like anything is going to change on that front. So, yeah, on to Liverpool now. Tough game, as I say. Not many people will fancy Newcastle to get the win. That's obvious, the way Liverpool have been playing. But another game under lights at St James's Park. Opportunity to bounce back from losing to West Ham in the previous home game. Let's hope Newcastle can get that huge result and really reignite the season. Let's really root for that.